But first we're going to walk into the convention center entry level. This area here along Vine Street is going to be an area where there will be a lot of drop-off areas, maybe more of the bus drop-off. There is a drop-off in this area. There's a drop-off in the mid-block of Queen Street. And then most of the hotel arrival point will be up in the square. This will have a canopy that will extend out of these pieces of steel that you see protruding out of the precast. There'll be a covered area all the way to the curb line, and that will allow people to get off a bus and go right directly undercover into the convention center entry level, which is right here behind me, and we'll go in and take a look at that. As I mentioned, this is the convention center entry level. It has a ticket office here to your right, which will function for arrivals for some of the gate shows or some even concerts for the inside the exhibition hall, which we'll see shortly. This will house the convention center authorities' offices, about 1,500 or 2,000 square feet here behind me. And this becomes what we call pre-function or a lobby area for people that would arrive. There'd be registration desks and the like. As you can see, we're beginning some of the finish of that area right now, drywall and ceiling and some paint beginning in this particular area. The finish of the project will really start here and move up the street, Queen Street, and up into the lobby of the hotel, and then all the way up into the guest tower, which is being constructed right now. Interesting part about this whole project is that it really is an infill project. We're surrounding this new facility with a number of old facilities, historic buildings in Lancaster, not the least of which is the facade of the old Watt and Shan building. We have off to my right over here the Thaddeus Stevens and Kleist buildings, and then off to my left on the corner of Christian and Vine, you'll find the Smith houses. Those are being featured by the Historic Preservation Trust of Lancaster County, a program of featuring the lives of Thaddeus Stevens and Lydia Smith and their connection to the Underground Railroad. It's a wonderful story. There's been a number of archaeological studies that have been featured on this site. And what we have done behind this plastic, which will then be replaced by glass, is an area that will be able to look down into a cistern area, which was featured, they believe, as the Historic Preservation Trust believes, as part of the Underground Railroad. And we'll also be able to see into the backs of the buildings. Thaddeus Stevens was a lawyer. He was an abolitionist in Lancaster County and in the United States. He was also one that promoted public education in the United States. That will all be featured by the Historic Preservation Trust over here. Area, big lobby space, 2.5-story volume in this area here. And as you turn around and look back behind you, those will be the main doors that will go into the exhibition hall, which we'll go to next. We're now completing some of the foundation work for this entry level, and we'll essentially complete the enclosure of the 2.5 acres in which this project sits. This was the last part that has been utilized for staging the materials. So this is a good news thing, and for some people who have to stage material in here, it's a bad news thing because we don't have a lot more room. We have a little bit in the alleyway, which I'll show you as far as our loading dock area. But now we're all on the perimeter of the site relative to staging things in.
This will be all enclosed.
This will all be enclosed. In fact, I mentioned to you the historic structures. This building here is called the Montgomery House. The 2/3 of this building will be inside the lobby space of this building, which is part of that internal street that I talked to you about. We'll have a nice streetscape that we'll see from the outside of the building, but when you walk inside the building and walk down through it, you'll be able to see a lot of these historic structures. And then when you get down to the lower level down here, you'll be able to actually look subsurface into an area where the system actually sat for the Thaddeus Stevens house. So it's kind of an interesting story. It was part of the architectural guidelines when it started to feature not only from an external but an internal look at kind of what historic Lancaster is all about. One of the things that you really look at from an overall standpoint of marketing the facility is what makes it unique. What makes it unique situated in downtown Lancaster? What makes it unique when you're inside the building? And some of the features that I've talked about so far and some that I'll show you here in a minute are emblematic of that. That's what we're trying to do because there are a number of these facilities and they do compete with each other. We want to show something that's truly unique about Lancaster. And so that internal and external streetscape was very, very important to us during the design phase of this, and now we're just implementing that. Okay, exhibition hall. We're just shy of 50,000 square feet in this floor space. This was what the meeting and facility people in Lancaster County were looking for. A 50,000 square foot flexible flat floor exhibition and meeting facility that had as much access to the flat floor and the strength of a flat floor that allowed us to bring as many meetings and conventions and trade shows to Lancaster County. Some of the features of this are the ability to devise this space in multiple configurations. They'll have folding partition walls that will be able to divide the main hall behind me in two. It will be able to divide the smaller area where the lower headroom space you see over here into multiple spaces, and then at the far end over here we'll be able to divide off into 5 or 6 different breakout rooms at the end of this exhibition hall. What you'll also note when you walk around here in our next area is one of our guiding principles was not to put our loading docks out to the front face of our buildings. That was the good news. Kind of the hard part of that was we put it in the alleyway system, which is a trick, and it's a configuration that we had to do some things with some adjacent buildings, which I'll show you. But it'll be a tight maneuver for some of our loading and unloading. One of the criticisms we've had, quite honestly, is that we're not going to be able to load and unload into this facility. I don't think that's accurate. I'll show you 3 docks and an opening on the north side of the exhibition hall, which will allow a tractor-trailer truck to drive right directly onto the exhibition floor itself. And that's a feature that some facilities don't have that we wanted to build into this structure itself.
No, I hate to be a school mom.
Truck docks here. The other door is for trash compaction, and we got a main exit way. As you'll find and you'll see around this facility, we built in probably in excess of the building codes. The ingress and egress is quite expansive relative to fire safety in the building. Here's the area that I mentioned to you a little bit earlier. The main traffic flow will come off Vine Street through a gate and then come into the alleyway system and then back into these slits here. There is another loading dock I'll show you up here that will service mainly the hotel component of it. But the traffic flow is northbound here through this area. This is also the area where we're bringing a lot of material. This is a big staging area, as you can see. It also is where the main tower crane foundation system is set. It's where we have our material personnel hoist located on the facility. We are bringing in some portion of our permanent power to the building and a vault here where we're now putting in brand new transformers to service this facility. So, a lot going on back here. It takes a lot of coordination on the site. But it's an area that's critical to the operation to get this thing built. Again, I think I mentioned to you about the kind of internal street that we talked about on this facility. This is the north wall of the Montgomery House, and this is the area where we start to transition from the exhibition hall and the convention center proper up into what is more of the areas for the hotel. What we did with the north wall of the Montgomery House is that we totally refurbished this wall, and we will the other facades of the building with what I call new old brick. We went and got salvaged brick, older brick in Lancaster County, and used it as a match. And what we didn't want this thing to be perfect. We wanted to show some of the outlines of things that happened in the past on this wall, because when you're in the lobby of the hotel, you're going to be staring at this, and it has some very interesting features if you study it a little bit. Some of the connection points from the old Watt and Shand building that went into that. You can, if you really study it, you can see an outline of a building that was sat adjacent to this in the past. You can see where what I call little bird's nests or joist pockets on the side of the wall that we left in place. We left the headers over the doorways, just to show that it's reflective of an older structure. It's not the new building that we built behind it, but the juxtaposition between the two. And that's what we're going to do all the way along here. And again, this whole area here where the temporary stairs are located will all be inside this building. So when you walk along in here, you'll be able to look up like you're outside as if you're looking at a facade of a building. And that's one of the neat features about this. And as you circle around the south side of this building, half of that facade will be inside this building as well. So it's one of the features that we're real proud of. One of the neat things about what we did with the facade of the Washington building, which is this wall that's behind me here, we kept every opening as it was when we bought the building. All the glass openings, all the door openings that will come into this building are what they were when the department store was operating. We're just going to replace them with newer windows and dress up the inside of this wall. The other thing that we did is that we wanted to separate the old wall from the new structure. And so what you see with the design here are these massive concrete columns that essentially hold this building up, and we pulled them away from the facade, so that you will, when you stare at this in the finished state, you'll see the new structure very defined against the older structure when we're complete. That was by intent, and is part of the construction component of this project. This is not essentially a steel project. It really is more of a concrete project. But anyway, this is one of the ballrooms that will be utilized quite heavily by the convention center and the exhibition hall. And I point out kind of the concrete rising over here, which is the freight elevator. It's a 12,000-pound freight elevator. You could drive a car in it. You could bring it up and you could put it on this floor if you wanted. You saw how beefy the structure was down below. So this is about a 9,500 square foot ballroom as opposed to nearly 10,000 square feet at the next level. But this will be utilized quite heavily, I think, by the convention center exhibition hall. And it is so close to it that we also feature a window in between these spans of steel that'll be able to look right down onto the exhibition hall. You'll also see the structure above, steel and all that, but that'll be part of what you'll be looking at. But you'll be able to look down into that space. Some of the areas where the brick was in poor condition, we're going to refurbish it, and that wall will get all done. This is the other ballroom. This is nearly 10,000 square feet. It'll be able to be devised in 3 and 4 different configurations. This will be the workhorse. This will be where you have your wedding. This is where you'll be able to have sit-down dinners. Probably 800 to 900 people could sit inside this space, but you won't see from this room when you're standing in the ballroom. But that's the meeting and administration level of the hotel. Okay. That's where Interstate will have their offices and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at the ceiling of that, there's a box where there's a big thick portion of that. That's the pool. That's the base of the pool that's on the next level above that. So that's essentially the 5th floor. The 5th floor. The floor above it is the health club level where we have our exercise equipment and we have an indoor pool. So that's the structure you're looking at. This is a view of the downtown side. You see the market, you can see the Heritage Museum, you can see the Christ Building, you can see the square monument center of that. So this is hopefully going to be some of the nicer stuff. One of the things that I thought would be interesting to you is try to tie the whole facade back to the new structure. We essentially removed the entire building, transferred the load of the facade to the external steel. What we've done now is that we've tied it back to the floors that we're standing on. If you look down along the base, you see these angle irons down along the base that have the slotted bolts in the slots. Those are welded to plates that were embedded in the concrete. We then tested the strength of the bolt that goes into the wall, and then just hand tighten those bolts so that it will allow the facade to move up and down It can't move out and in, but it can move up and down because the older facade will expand and contract at a different rate than the new structure. So this was the methodology that the engineers came up with to tie the facade back to this building. We're going to do it on every one of the floors, all the way around the facade and at the roof line. We'll also be replacing the balustrade at the top. There's an interesting story to that. I won't bore you with it unless you want to know, but the real quick story is that we found the original manufacturer of the balustrade spindles at the top of this building somewhere up in Scranton. Those are featured down in the as a mock-up down in the courtyard down here below us as a mock-up so that we can see what that looks like. But that was a very interesting story. Our contractors found the manufacturer, found the original pattern, and we've reproduced it, and that's what we're going to be putting back up on the building. We're turning a floor about every week, 6 to 7 days on that, and we have about 5 floors to go. So we're expecting sometime in mid to late July to be what we call topped out. We can celebrate that milestone on the project. We have a little ceremony that you go through in the construction business when you top out on a tower. We'll be doing that. We'll invite you all to that. Hopefully, that's a significant milestone for us. So we're confident. We're making some progress, and with the removal of the external facade stabilization, that'll be another milestone for us, and that'll happen in the next 15, 30 days, if you will, and we'll start to see the Watt and Shane facade really come back intact with the new structure behind.